wonderful good morning also from my side. I hope you had a nice evening and, as Dominic said, a strong coffee this morning. And we have a very inspiring start this morning because our next speaker is a truly inspiring lady herself. Her CV is kind of impressive. She's an economist. She used to work for the United Nations and for the EU Commission. And she used to be foreign minister of Spain from 2020 to 2021. And now she is professor at the University in Paris, Charité. So Arancha González says, a strong Europe is an independent Europe, and we are currently entering a new era where trade is weaponized. So the question this morning for her is, how should Europe respond to the situation? Ms. González, I'm very delighted. The stage is yours. Good morning.
Thank you for this invitation to the Lucerne Dialogue on a topic that I'm very passionate about, strong Europe. I've been asked to tell you all about you need to know about international trade in those difficult times in 15 minutes. So let's get going. Let me start. First, let's get rid of three big mistakes that I often hear about on international trade. First, the fact that there is deglobalization. No, there is no deglobalization. Economic integration and the benefits for businesses and for citizens remains alive. The share of China on global exports is up. The share of trade exports in goods over industrial production in the world is up. Trade in services, the big engine of international trade, is up. Now, what's changing is the geography of this trade. What is changing is that businesses now have to pay much more attention to the manner in which you drive supply chains. So yes, changes are here, but no, globalization is not dead. There is a need to be more on the security side over efficiency, but efficiency remains a driver of the economy. Number two, friendshoring. No. International trade is not about friendship. Don't get me wrong, friendship is great. But international trade is not about dividing the world in democracies and autocracies. And as we will very soon know, tariffs from democracies are as hurtful for businesses than tariffs from autocracies. The world of international trade is about comparative advantages, and the world of international trade is about respecting the games of international trade. Number three, big mistake, tariffs are needed to protect workers, to reindustrialize, or to reduce current account deficits. No, this is not correct. We don't protect workers with tariffs. We protect workers with a strong social safety net. So now that we know what trade is not about, let's focus on where the problems are for international trade today. The problems are three. One, China. Two, US. Three, US and China. Let me start with China. What's the problem with China? The problem with China is that its citizens are not consuming enough. Consumption is subdued. Its businesses and government are investing a lot, all of it in productive capacities. Whatever cannot be consumed in the domestic market needs to be exported over capacities that then imbalance the international markets, imbalance a lot of where we are active. Predatory pricing, predatory behavior, and weaponization. This is what's wrong on that part of the world. Let's look at the US, the other problem for us in Europe. And when I mean Europe, I don't mean the European Union, I mean Europe, our home, Switzerland, the UK, Norway, the European Union, of course. What's wrong with the US? The US is addicted today to unilateral trade policies, to unilateral trade measures that protect vested interest with the pretense that they are protecting workers. Tariffs that are being used to obtain concessions. It's okay, we all know, if you're strong, you want to use your weapons to obtain concessions from others. Concessions on LNG purchases, concessions on procuring weapons and ammunition, concessions on technology regulation. This is what we've been hearing now. This is going to be tough. The ultimate concession that, in my view, the US will want to obtain through these tariffs, some form of cooperative framework to devalue the dollar. Devalue the dollar in a friendly environment. This is what we need to get ready for. China and the US, the third problem. The geopolitical rivalry. This rivalry, which is serious, I'm not taking this lightly, it's serious. It means that imports and exports, whether it's goods, whether it's technology, whether it's investments, is being subjected to lots of limitations. Limitations for critical materials, limitations for national security, sometimes well beyond, with a very expansive view of what national security is. Remember that for Donald Trump, in the first incarnation of his presidency, washing machines were about national security. So, yes, this is the part that is tough, and it obliges us to incorporate more security in our frameworks. Number 3, what to do? What should we do? And what should we not do? Let me start with what we should not do. It's always easier to say what we shouldn't do, right? The first is we should resist the temptation of getting divided. Our strength in Europe, in big continental Europe, our strength is to be united. United, we are an economic force. United, we are a geopolitical force. So, our first task is to remain united. Second, what not to do. I think we have to avoid falling in the trap of trying to please the US by becoming very unnice with China, or trying to please China by being very unnice with the US. We have to have our game. Our game is not equidistant. We are not equidistant between the two. But we know that the two are important today. The two are important to economic stability. The two are important to our trade pattern. We depend, to a large extent, for our growth on open markets. The two are important. So we need to have our game. We need to be careful not to have our game designed by others. Number 3, what not to do. Pretend that we have invented a fancy new economic theory that, in reality, is protectionism with another fancy name. The laws of politics change a lot. I've been a politician, I can tell you the laws of politics change all the time. The laws of economics are a little harder to change. So let's be careful not to fall for fancy economic theories that in reality are about protecting vested interest. What to do? First, let's keep calm, cool, and collected. Let's not get excited. There's going to be a lot of excitement. Like you, I went through Trump 1, and every morning when I would get up, I would check my email, and I would listen to the radio in the hope that nothing would have happened, and lots of things were happening all the time. Let's keep cool. First, let's prefer persuasion. Let's prefer a good old sit down and talk. Let's prefer negotiations. You are in the business, so you know that negotiation is the name of the game. So let's prefer that avenue. And if we have to give a little bit here or a little bit there, let's do that. Why not? let's be careful not to give away our most sensitive interests. Because once you do that, you're not taken seriously. You know that. So, first, persuasion. But of course, if persuasion doesn't work, we have to move to dissuasion. So how do we dissuade? We dissuade by showing that we also have muscle. So let's start preparing also our responses. We should not be the ones to shoot first, but we also have ammunition that we can use if need be. Let's prepare the lists. Let's explore where there are other vulnerabilities also on the side of our trading partners. And of course, if we are hit with unilateral measures, we should respond with unilateral measures. We know an eye for an eye will make us all blind. We know this. But we also have to be clear about protecting our interests. Second thing that, in my view, we should do governments and businesses should do, is invest more on de-risking excessive vulnerabilities. It's true that in the past we were building our value chains, you were choosing suppliers and clients, sometimes without realizing the excessive dependencies, excessive links that we were building with single markets, single products, and single jurisdictions. We have to be more careful now. Do we have to give up international trade? No. But we just have to be clear that geopolitics now is a risk that needs to be inputted in the risk management framework of any company. And governments need to know that economic security today features higher than in the past when efficiency was trumping security. Now it's a better mix between the two. Particular attention needs to be placed on critical raw materials, where we need to be a bit more vigilant, where there are mechanisms that are on the table that we should work on in order to make sure we are not caught by surprise. Finally, we need to build alliances with others. The world is not just about the US and China. The world is much bigger. I was in Hong Kong a week and a half ago. The world from Hong Kong looks very different. We need to look at Asia with much more attention. The big engine of growth in international trade is in Asia. We need to pay more attention to Latin America, which is why I think the EU-Mercosur agreement is a no-brainer in those days. We need to look at Africa. These are our neighbors. If I look at median age in our continent, median age, the age at which our societies divide into equal halves, is 44 years of age. 44. In the US and in China is 38. In India is 28. In Africa is 18. So, we need to pay more attention to this big neighbor in the south called Africa. There are big opportunities, there are risks, no doubt, but you know that there is no reward without risk. So, ladies and gentlemen, as far as international trade is concerned, I think Europe has a bit of work to do to repair, to repaint, to refurbish. It should do this with a common European spirit, European Union, Switzerland, on a good day, the UK, I hope, because at the end of the day, we will be all on the same boat. We have a bit of repair, a bit of repaint, a bit of refurbishment to do, but we are not alone on international trade. Thank you very much. Franca, back to you.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much. More than on time for us. One question more, I guess. Perfect. So we got the big picture, and if we now look forward and say it's January, we all know Donald Trump will be in the White House. So if he says, and he says often, tariffs are my favorite word, is there any way to prevent tariffs, or shall we be ready and say we automatically go for countermeasures? What's your approach?
So I was talking to a very good Republican friend of mine last week, and he was saying, I was saying, like I know that tariffs are not that good at the end of the day. Look at what happened last time around. And that Trump won, there were no more jobs that were creating as a result of tariffs. There was no reindustrialization that happened as a result of tariffs. Tariffs had on entrance on steel and aluminum had a big impact on the downstream transformation sector. And he told me, Arancha, it's great that you say that, but just don't waste your time. There will be tariffs. Just don't waste your time. So start from the assumptions that there will be tariffs. So if this is true, Franca, then I think what we have to do is be ready. Again, not panic, not start running around saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do, I will go to Mar-a-Lago and you will go to Mar-a-Lago and we will all go to Mar-a-Lago. I think it's better if we have a united strategy.
So how would it look like, a united strategy or countermeasures? How would that exactly look like, for example?
So, for example, we should be ready with the list of things that we are happy to trade, to exchange. We should be clear about the things that we are not ready to exchange. I don't think in Switzerland or in Europe, a member of the US Congress saying that we should change our legislation on data protection, I don't think we should accept that, because this is the sovereign right of our parliaments, just like it's a sovereign right of their Congress. But there are other things we can do. If tariffs come, then we should respond. Franca, there is one thing we could all do that when we are hit with measures from the US, which is not to hit each other. Imagine that in the World Trade Organization, all members of this organization that will be impacted by measures from Donald Trump were to say, we will not go down that path vis-à-vis each other. That would be a signal, and that maybe prevents the global economy from spiraling down.
You said earlier, friend sharing is dead. But Trump is a deal maker. Shouldn't we get ready and say, hey, we are ready to deal with him? And so that we are aiming for our values, our interests, but at the same time, he can remain with his slogan, Make America Great Again. So for a real deal maker, shouldn't we maybe get a bit more flexible, get the language he understands? Is there a chance?
Sure. Let's play his game. Let's say it's great to make America great. Let's do that. Why not? Let's filibuster a little bit. We could do that. Let's become a bit more Trumpian. Yes, But very careful with this idea that trade is about only exchanging with your friends. Because think how Mexico and Canada are feeling today. The first announcement was about Mexico and Canada, the biggest friends that the US has. Is this really a friendship move to target you to start with? I think we have to be very careful. Friendship is great to have friends, don't get me wrong, but we have to be careful with this division I see sometimes between democracies and autocracies. First, because let's face it, there is a bit of autocrats within ourselves too. So we are not serious when we divide the world in this manner as regards international trade. In international trade, what we have to be careful is that people respect the rules, that countries and companies respect the rules of the game, that they don't cheat, that they don't overflow other markets, that they don't exercise predatory pricing. That is what we can and should be asking others to do. But as far as I'm concerned, as from Monday, when Donald Trump hit on Mexico and Canada, the idea that there is friend-shoring is dead.
Okay, at least we face reality here, that's good. But if we say, you said earlier, yeah, we need to negotiate, we need to sit down and have those old talks, those conversations. So from the perspective of the deal, what could Europe, not the EU, what could Europe offer Donald Trump? What's our package we could at least talk about?
No, I mean, we've been down that road before. There is certainly LNG, which he likes, because he likes, as we know, to drill too. Just like he likes tariffs, he likes drill. Now, it so happens that at the current stage of our energy transition, at the current stage we are in, we need LNG for our energy mix. So we might as well do a big thing about buying it from the US. There is plenty of defense equipment and material that we buy from the US. We are at the time when our defense budgets are increasing, because to protect ourselves, to protect the security in the European continent, we need to become stronger on the defense and security side. Let's do that. There are spaces where, in my view, we have very, very small tariffs on certain products. We call them nuisance tariffs, you know? We could get rid of nuisance tariffs. Why not? There are things we can do, but there are things we should not do. Because in accepting that everything is up for sale, we weaken ourselves too.
For a very long time, we believed change through trade is possible. It's a good way. From the German perspective, I can say we really, in a brutal way, learned with Russia that this way isn't working as we thought or as expected. So is this an option, not only regarding the US, but you said we have many other partners out there, we need to reach out. Is this idea of trade through change through trade a way we could choose?
No, I think we have to be careful with, I often hear that the EU has been naive in this idea that change through trade could work. But if I look at the last 40, 50 years of Europe, I haven't seen a period of greater prosperity for Europe. I'm sorry to say, but we have seen the most incredible period of prosperity, shared prosperity and solidarity in our recent present. That is also the product of the interdependence that we have built, the openness that we have maintained, the fact that we have tried to expand this rules-based system around the world. Now, where we have not been good enough is at excessive dependencies. And with Russia, what we had is an excessive dependency, which was basically on one big product called energy. But I mean, I think we have to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah, the game with Russia wasn't good. Yes, we did three things at the same time that we shouldn't have done. We didn't build the European Energy Union, so that was a big weakness. We exited nuclear without really thinking what we were doing and what the alternative would be, and we were not fast enough in expanding renewable energies in Europe, because no one wants to have in his or her backyard the renewable infrastructure that is needed to decarbonate our economy. So let's not only put the blame on the Wandel durch Handel, which is, Franca, what you allude to. Let's also look at where we have not been good enough, because that is also part of the story. So now we know that we have to walk and to chew gum at the same time, that we have to maintain our openness, but we have to double down on the changes, on the reforms at home that will make us more resilient. That is the name of the game.
Multitasking. Last question. Today and yesterday already, the theme, the topic of our conference is home alone. And I would like to get an interpretation of you. Home alone sounds, as Dominic said earlier, a bit negative. But if we are in a home and we have in every single room a good neighbor, a nice neighbor, what kind of atmosphere is it that we should aim for? And do we already have it? Or is there stress in every room if you look at Europe currently?
No, I think, we will be forgiven for feeling a little bit lonely these days, huh? Okay, but we are not alone. First, in Europe, we are not alone. I was here yesterday at the opening, and let me tell you, if we really wanted to build a bit of resilience in this continent, I'm going to be very politically incorrect because I'm going to take a stance on an issue that belongs to you. I think a big step would be that Europe and Switzerland decide to move into a home where they are a little bit closer, that they don't live under the same roof, but they maybe share the sitting room. That is where we could, the sitting room and maybe the kitchen.
Well said.
Because this is where you prepare the recipes. So it feels a bit lonely, but it's mostly on us. Franca, the message that I like to leave this audience with is this: our problem is not Donald Trump, and our solution would not have been Kamala Harris. Our problem is us. And if we decide that we want to sort this problem, if we decide that we want to be stronger, if we decide to be more united, if we decide that Switzerland and the EU get closer, if we decide that the UK and the EU get closer, also starting with security and defense, then we would take care of our future, not the voters in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, not the Chinese Communist Party. It's on us.
It's on us. That's the message. Thank you so much, Ms. González. Perfect. Good morning.